For 25 years, I held the human brain in my hands. It was soft, gray, wrinkled like old fruit. To me, it was nothing more than 3 pounds of biological machinery. Neurons firing, synapses connecting, chemistry in motion. I stood in front of lecture halls filled with bright-eyed medical students and told them with absolute certainty, there is no soul, only synapses. There is no God, only dopamine and serotonin. I was brilliant. I was published. I was arrogant. Then, on a rainy Tuesday evening in November, I died. And I was completely, utterly wrong. My name is Dr. Arthur Brennan. I am a board-certified neurosurgeon. For over 2 decades, I worked at one of the most prestigious medical institutions on the East Coast. I performed brain surgeries that saved lives. I wrote papers that were cited by colleagues around the world. I debated theologians and dismantled their arguments with cold, surgical precision. I believed in what I could measure, what I could cut open, what I could see under a microscope. Then, on a rainy Tuesday evening in November, I died. My heart stopped beating for exactly 10 minutes and 47 seconds. According to every textbook I had ever read, my brain should have been dark, inactive, silent. But it wasn't. In those 10 minutes, I traveled to a place that should not exist. I saw colors that have no name. I stood in a city made of living light. I spoke without words to a being of pure consciousness. And when I came back, I was no longer the man who believed only in what he could prove. Today, I'm going to tell you exactly what lies beyond the flat line. Not because I want to convince you, but because I can no longer stay silent.
Let me take you back to who I was before that night. I graduated summa cum laude from a top-tier Ivy League medical school. I completed my residency at one of the nation's leading trauma centers. By the time I was 35, I was performing surgeries most doctors wouldn't attempt until their 50s. I was good, and I knew it. My colleagues respected me, my patients trusted me, but there was something else they said about me behind closed doors. They said I was cold. I remember one particular evening in the hospital cafeteria. A fellow surgeon, a kind man, a Christian, tried to share a story with me about a patient who claimed to have seen heaven during cardiac arrest. I didn't let him finish. "Mike," I said, cutting him off mid-sentence, "that's a hallucination. The brain releases DMT when it's dying. It's a survival mechanism. There's no mystery here." He looked at me with something like pity. "Arthur, not everything fits into a petri dish." I smiled, the kind of smile you give someone who still believes in Santa Claus. "Yes," I said, "it does." That was me. That was my worldview, neat, rational, and closed. I lived in a beautiful home in the suburbs. I drove a luxury sedan. I had a career most people could only dream of. But I had no room for wonder, no room for mystery, no room for God. The night it happened, I was leaving the hospital after a 14-hour shift. I had just finished a craniotomy, a successful one, and I was exhausted. The November rain was relentless. It hammered against my windshield as I merged onto the highway. The wipers were on full speed, but they could barely keep up. I remember thinking about the surgery, replaying every cut, every decision. I was always like that, obsessive, perfectionist. I didn't see the truck until it was too late. It came from the left lane, a massive 18-wheeler hydroplaning out of control. I had maybe 2 seconds to react. I jerked the wheel. The world exploded.
Glass shattered, metal screamed. My body was thrown against the seatbelt with such force that I felt my ribs crack. And then, silence. The pain stopped instantly. Not gradually, not the way painkillers work, where the edges soften and the ache fades. No, it was like someone flipped a switch. One moment, I was drowning in agony. The next, nothing. I opened my eyes, and I was floating. I know how that sounds. Believe me, I know. But I'm telling you what happened, not what should have happened. I was hovering about 20 feet above the wreckage. I could see my car, crumpled like a tin can, steam rising from the engine. The truck had jackknifed across 2 lanes. Traffic was already backing up. And then I saw myself, slumped in the driver's seat, blood running down my face. My chest wasn't moving. I should have been terrified, but I wasn't. I felt calm, detached, like I was watching a movie. I could see the flashing lights of emergency vehicles approaching in the distance, red and blue cutting through the rain. And then something changed. I felt a pull. Not a physical pull. There was no hand, no rope, but I felt myself being drawn downward. Not toward my body, toward something else. It was like gravity, but inverted. I was falling up or down. Directions stopped making sense. The world around me began to dissolve. The highway, the rain, the lights, all of it faded into blackness. And I mean blackness. Not the blackness of a room with the lights off. Not the blackness of closing your eyes. This was the absence of everything. No light, no sound, no sensation. I was alone in a void so complete, so absolute, that I began to panic. I tried to scream, but I had no mouth. I tried to move, but I had no body. For the first time in my life or death, I felt true terror. I was nowhere, I was nothing. How long I stayed there, I cannot tell you. Time didn't exist in that place. It could have been seconds, it could have been centuries. All I knew was the crushing weight of absolute isolation. And then, far in the distance, I saw light. At first, it was just a pinpoint, a single star in an ocean of black. But it was growing, or I was moving toward it. The light wasn't white, it was gold. But not the gold of jewelry or sunsets. This was a living gold. It pulsed, it breathed. And as I got closer, I realized it wasn't just a light. It was a tunnel. A spiraling vortex of radiance, spinning slowly, pulling me toward its center. The edges shimmered with colors I had never seen before. Colors that don't exist in our spectrum. I don't have words for them. Imagine trying to describe red to someone who's been blind since birth. That's what this was like. I entered the tunnel, and the sensation. God, the sensation! It was like being wrapped in pure love. I know how that sounds. I know how new age and ridiculous that sounds. But I felt it in every fiber of my being. I was completely, unconditionally loved. Not loved for what I had accomplished, not loved despite my flaws. Just loved. The tunnel carried me forward, faster and faster. I could see geometric patterns in the light, fractals, spirals, mandalas that shifted and changed as I passed through them. They weren't random.
They were intentional, designed. And then, suddenly, I was through. I emerged into, I don't know what to call it, a place, a dimension, a realm. What I saw defies every law of physics I ever learned. I was standing, or floating, I'm not sure, in the center of a vast space. Above me, below me, all around me was a sky unlike anything on earth. It wasn't blue, it wasn't black, it was layered, translucent veils of color that moved like curtains in a breeze, purples that glowed, greens that sang. I could hear the colors, I could feel them. And before me, a city. No, not a city, a metropolis, a construct so immense, so impossibly beautiful that I fell to my knees. It was made entirely of crystal, but not the dull, lifeless crystal of geology textbooks. This crystal was alive. It pulsed with inner light. The towers, and there were thousands of them, stretched up into infinity. Some spiraled like DNA helices, others branched out like trees made of diamond. The architecture was wrong, impossible. Buildings that folded in on themselves, bridges that connected to nothing but somehow led everywhere. And the light came from within the structures themselves. Each tower glowed with its own luminescence, gold, silver, opal, rose. They hummed. I could feel the vibration in my chest, even though I didn't have a chest. I started walking, or gliding, toward the city. As I got closer, I realized the streets weren't streets. They were rivers of liquid light, flowing, shimmering, reflecting colors that shifted with every glance. And there were beings there, figures made of pure radiance. No faces, no bodies in the way we understand them, just forms, presences, moving with purpose through the city. One of them turned toward me. I felt it before I saw it, a shift in the air, or whatever this place had instead of air. The being approached. It was taller than any human, but its size seemed to fluctuate depending on how I looked at it. Its light was so intense I should have been blinded, but I wasn't. Instead, I felt drawn to it, magnetized. And then it spoke. No, that's not right. It didn't speak. There were no words, no sound. But I heard it. Inside my mind, inside my soul. The voice, if I can call it that, was ancient and young at the same time. Male and female, 1,000 voices and one voice. It said, "You are loved." 3 words, that's all. But they hit me like a tidal wave. I broke. Not physically, there was nothing physical to break, but something inside me shattered. All the walls I had built, all the certainty, all the arrogance, gone. I wept, not with eyes. I had no eyes, but I wept. And the being drew closer. It reached out, and I felt its touch, not on my skin, but on my essence, my consciousness. And then everything opened. Imagine every book you've ever wanted to read, every question you've ever asked, every mystery you've ever pondered, all
answered at once. I saw the structure of reality, not through equations or theories, but directly. I understood how matter bends, how consciousness shapes reality, how love, actual, literal love, is the fundamental force that holds everything together. Not gravity, not electromagnetism, love. I saw the threads that connect every living thing, the web of light that stretches from atom to star, from bacteria to human, from Earth to galaxies I didn't know existed. I saw my own life, every moment, every choice, every word I'd ever spoken, not through my eyes, but through the eyes of everyone I'd ever affected. I felt the pain I'd caused, the kindness I'd given, the love I'd withheld. And through it all, no judgment, only understanding. The being communicated something else to me, not in words, but in knowing. It showed me that this place, this city, this realm was not the end. It was a station, a waypoint. There were levels beyond this, dimensions beyond dimensions, realities folded into realities. And we, humans, with our short lives and fragile bodies, we are eternal. We are not accidents. We are not random collections of atoms. We are threads in a tapestry so vast, so intricate, that even here I could only glimpse a fraction of it. I wanted to stay. God, I wanted to stay. But then the being's light dimmed slightly, and I felt a shift. It communicated one final message. Not yet. You must return. No, I couldn't. I wouldn't. I tried to resist. I tried to hold on to the light, to the city, to the overwhelming peace I felt. But the pull was too strong. The city began to fade. The colors dimmed, and I was fallen, backward through the tunnel. Faster this time, violent. I screamed or tried to, and then I slammed back into my body like a freight train hitting a wall. The pain was indescribable. Every nerve ending was on fire. My ribs were shattered. My lungs burned with every breath. I could taste blood in my mouth. I tried to open my eyes, but the light was blinding. Not the beautiful light of the city. This was harsh, fluorescent, medical. I heard voices, muffled, urgent. He's back. We've got a pulse. Pupils responding. Get me the crash cart. Jesus, he was gone for almost 11 minutes. I wanted to scream at them. I wanted to tell them where I'd been, but my throat wouldn't work. My body wouldn't obey. I was trapped in this broken, agonizing shell of flesh and bone. The surgical lights above me blurred into halos. I saw masked faces leaning over me, hands pressing on my chest, the rhythmic beep of monitors. I wanted to go back to the city, back to the light, back to the place where pain didn't exist. But I couldn't. I was here, alive. And for the first time in my career, I understood what my patients meant when they said they'd seen heaven, because I had, and I'd been sent back. I spent 3 weeks in the ICU, 4 broken ribs, punctured lung, severe concussion. The doctors called my survival a miracle. I called it a curse. Not because I was ungrateful, but because I knew what I'd lost. My colleagues came to visit me. They brought flowers. They made jokes. They talked about the surgery I'd been performing before the accident. But I couldn't engage, not the way I used to, because everything felt different now.
One of the attending physicians, a neurologist I'd known for years, sat beside my bed one afternoon and asked me if I remembered anything from the crash. I hesitated. Then I told him. I told him about the tunnel, the city, the being of light. He nodded politely. He didn't interrupt. When he finished, he smiled gently and said, "Arthur, you experienced a textbook case of an NDE, near-death experience. Your brain was oxygen-deprived. It released endorphins, DMT-like compounds. What you saw was a hallucination, a beautiful one, but a hallucination nonetheless." I didn't argue with him, because I knew the truth, and no amount of scientific reductionism could take that away from me. I was discharged a month later. I tried to return to work, but I couldn't, not the way I had before. Every time I stood in an operating room, every time I held a scalpel, I thought about the city, about the being, about the love, and I realized I had spent my entire life cutting open skulls to find the soul. But the soul was never in the brain. It was beyond it. I retired from surgery 6 months after the accident. My colleagues thought I'd lost my nerve. Maybe I had, but I'd gained something far more valuable. I'd gained certainty. Not the arrogant certainty of my youth, not the certainty of textbooks and peer-reviewed journals, the certainty of experience. I know now that death is not the end. It is a doorway. And on the other side there is no darkness, no judgment, no eternal void. Only light, only love, only home. I don't fear death anymore. How could I? I've already been there, and I know I'll return. My name is Dr. Arthur Brennan, and this is my testimony. Believe it or not, that's your choice, but I'm telling you the truth. The only truth that matters. Love is real. Consciousness is eternal. And we are far more than the flesh that contains us. Thank you for listening.